Right.
Part 2 of Laurent Weichberger's autobiography. What is love?
So I have my experience of love, and I also lean into Baba's sharing about love because they're both very important to me. So now that I'm almost 56, I can say that love has to do with how I behave. It's an active love of how I show up in somebody's life. And so depending on who I'm with, let's say it's Vanessa, and she has her love language. So rather than me just bringing her, activities that are important to me, if I show up in ways that are important to her in her love language, and she experiences that as loving, that's the most important thing. If I just do what I call a dead mouse gift, where your cat brings you a mouse and says, "Look what I got for you," and you're like, "Oh, thanks," you realize that the cat is doing its loving thing, like, I found this I got this mouse for you, but it's not that good for me. So I try to find ways to love those who are around me in their love language. So it's the way I behave. And with Baba, it's about, he says, Baba's quote is, "Real happiness lies in making other people happy." It's the same idea. Finding out what is meaningful to somebody else and trying to live up to that.
What is the heart?
So obviously we're not talking anatomical heart. It's not about the organ that pumps blood through your body. It's about for me, it's about a mystical place within that is the home of my soul, or Baba, or love and the truth. So where is that? I'm not sure I know where it is. I've been there. I'm not sure I could give somebody a map to it, but it's somewhere so deep within me that did you say, what is the heart?
What is?
Yeah, it's a home for my soul.
Why are you writing a book?
So I started with forgiveness, and then I decided to do surrender. And Baba talks about, one of Baba's quotes is, "There are 3 things on the spiritual path about which there can be no compromise: love, obedience, and surrender." So I actually started with surrender. I don't feel qualified to write about obedience. And then I thought, well, I'm at that point in my life now. I'm about to have my second Saturn return, where I know something about love. Maybe not a lot, but I could share that something. And so I was inspired, and I wake up every day inspired to write. So I've been writing a lot. And I think I could just write for the rest of my life about love, but then the book wouldn't come out. So I'm going to have to cut it off at some point and just share what I've written. It's an extremely inspiring subject. And I'm writing with Vanessa chapters together. I'm writing with Cypress. Aspen's written, and other people are contributing. So I think it's probably the most dynamic subject to write about, the most interesting subject to write about. And as I'm writing about it, I'm learning about love also. I don't claim to know that much, but it's writing about it is part of the journey of discovering love in my life. It's been an incredible experience.
How did love change your life?
Well, so, you could go back to being a child, you could go to turning points. I think that, if I go through my experience, my first experience, of course, was you and Puppy and Sarah. And then, of course, I felt very close to Amma and even Oma. And then, my girlfriends were very important to me, and my guy friends. But there's turning points along the way. And then, of course, getting married is about love. Hopefully, it should be about love. And having love for your children, Aspen, Cypress, and now I've got stepchildren, and I've got an adopted daughter, Margie. And so I think love weaves its way through all of that. And then, of course, there's the love that's from Baba and for Baba. So that relationship with divine love, for me, has been probably the most inspiring, and I experience Baba's love as active guidance. So it's not like a noun, like I feel love. It's more like an active pull by Baba with guidance towards the truth, towards him, towards more love. So it's, for me, love is the catalyst, the spiritual catalyst.
How did having children change your life?
Yeah, people have talked to me about this before. They're very clueless, especially young people, about children. I remember one friend of mine said, "Oh, I understand what it's like to have children." He didn't have children at the time. He said, "It's like me having my post on my ship," because he was in the Navy, like manning my post on my ship. And I just laughed and I said, "Actually, it's absolutely nothing like that, right? It's not about having a post and having a responsibility. It's about, when Aspen first came into the world, she created a whole new dimension of my life. So if you think about dimensions, right? If there's 3 dimensions, it added a whole 4th dimension. I tell people, like, if you could imagine having a 2-dimensional life where everything's flat, and suddenly you add a 3rd dimension where there's depth and there's, more. It's so much more than when you don't have children. It's about, for me, it awakened a provider in me. It awakened a protector in me, where I became very concerned about making sure Aspen and Cypress and now all the other children and Vanessa have what they need, or more than they need, and then protecting them from what's going on in the world, because the world is a pretty crazy place.
How does love heal people?
In order to talk about healing, I think you have to talk about the wound itself. So there's so many different kinds of wounds. There's the father wound, there's the mother wound, there's wounds that have to do with abandonment or abuse or self-inflicted wounds, addictions. There's so many different kinds of wounds. So I think if you want to talk about healing, you first address the wound. And then you have to go deeper into what's the root cause of the wound. Was the wound avoidable? Is it unnecessary suffering? Is the person willing to change their behavior so that they don't keep reopening the wound or keep wounding themselves? So it's a very complicated subject, but I think that sometimes the simplest thing can be experienced as healing and as love. And so in the case of a father wound, for example, sometimes showing up in a way that's, unconditionally loving and providing in a way that somebody needs can be healing of their father wound if they didn't have unconditional love, or if they were abused by their father, or if they felt they had to prove themselves to get their father's love. So I really just think it comes down to what's the wound, and in what way does that love show up to address the wound.
How does love heal?
What was the previous question?
How does love heal people? I just wonder about the energy field of love being involved in.
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this. So I don't think love is an energy field. So I think that love is synonymous with the soul and God. I think that the soul is truly God, and that God and the soul have various expressions of love. So Don and I talked about this, and he said that he wanted to write about the evolution of love. and the involution of love. And I said to Don, I don't think that love evolves and involves. I said, I think it's the way that love expresses itself that evolves and involves. For example, Baba said that the gravity, the force of gravity that the earth exerts to the moon is a type of love, or the gravity of the sun for the earth, keeping it in orbit, is a type of love. But that's a very primitive type of love. So as the soul becomes more aware and conscious, like a human being, then the soul's expression, the higher forms of expression, is the higher form of love that has evolved and will involve into the divine love. So if you, like Mom, if you today became God realized, it's not that you're a different soul, it's that you fully realized your own capacity to express love,
Right.
and to achieve,
I like that answer.
yeah, to achieve that healing which you feel is needed. So if somebody is an addict, you might approach them and say, let me help you with your addiction, and you might work with them in ways that a psychologist can't, because you have an insight based on your love and your divine understanding.
Absolutely.
You know? And Baba did that with people. I'm not saying that Baba went around healing everybody, but he was capable of doing it, and he worked with people in his own way to do
The
that.
musts.
That's a great example, Mom. So the musts needed something that Baba could give them, and he said what they needed was he said the musts become intoxicated with their experience of the divine,
Yes.
and then they
And
no
naked.
longer, they could be naked, and they no longer have a desire to move closer to the truth.
No,
So
they're stuck in
they're stuck.
La La Land.
They're stuck in La La Land. So what Baba would do is help them to become unstuck, and then help them to have that motivation to keep moving closer to the truth.
Right.
Like you can imagine, you've had blissful experiences, I'm sure, where you were just very, very happy, and then you have no desire to have more of that. You're like, no,
That's
I've had
it.
enough food, or I've had enough sex, or whatever, and you're like, I'm fine for right now. Well, these people were so intoxicated with their experience of God that they're like, I'm fine for right, I don't need to move,
Right.
this is good. You know,
Right.
and Baba was like, yeah, but you're not at the goal of self-realization, there's more to experience, so he had to help them come
And
out
they
of that.
listened to him?
It wasn't about words, he helped them,
Right,
his
he
his
didn't
divine
speak.
love,
Right.
his divine love helped them to move out of that
That's
state.
the love I'm talking about.
Divine love.
Yeah. How does divine love feel?
In ways only God can.
Yeah, that's the answer I'm looking for.
Because Baba would use his infinite knowledge to know what that person needed.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there's a beautiful story of Greta Garbo had a lover named Mercedes da Costa, a European woman. And Mercedes and Greta broke off. I think Greta broke off with Mercedes. And Mercedes was depressed. So she went to Baba in Europe. And Baba said to her, silently, he said, go back down to your car, because she was visiting Baba at somebody's apartment or something. Baba said, go back down to your car and bring me your gun. She had a gun. So she handed Baba the gun. And Baba opened the gun, the cylinder. This was back in the 30s or 40s or something. He opened that part of the gun, and he removed the bullets from the gun. And he kept the bullets, and he gave her back her gun. So in what way is that healing, right? Well, to have the avatar, or perfect master, or saint, or however you relate to Baba, I relate to him as the Christ. To have the Christ remove the bullets from your gun when you're depressed, for me that's hugely symbolic, but it's also the greatest act of love if in his knowledge of her depression, he thought, she's going to try to harm herself. So let me make sure she doesn't kill herself with her gun.
Yeah.
A gun without bullets won't kill you. So he kept her bullets.
Oh, I like that story.
It's an incredible story. And then he encouraged her to write to Greta about her feelings.
And
You can read the rest of the story in Lord My Hair. I'll send it to you.
oh, okay. Because
It's a long
that's really-
story.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a long story.
That's all I have.
Thank you.